For those of you enjoying our program on YouTube, you can find us at tfnpodcast.com. Just go to the right-hand side and click the YouTube icon. That will bring you to our live video. So, considering, I will restart that intro.
Okay.
It's time for the Faraway Nearby Spooky Fun Edition with DJ Star Sage, the Duchess Sue, and special guests. Hello, Sue. How are you?
I'm pretty good, and yourself?
Well, I'm pretty all right. How are you liking my finery today?
I think you look wonderful.
Wouldn't you like to know what I am?
What are you?
I'm a B-movie TV hostess.
Oh, you definitely look like one. Although I think your headwear should be gold or something.
Well, you know, the Mavens of the Night always have dark hair, so
that's true, they do.
And I think maybe my name is Cliche. Might be a French-Canadian TV host.
Yeah, I think Cleo has this bright blue wig.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's wonderful. I want to steal it from her, but that would be unkind.
Well, we have some guests joining us for our special Halloween edition. So we'll go ahead and get that going right away here. So we have my hubby, Billy, here. Say hello, Billy.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Billy.
Are you ready for Halloween, honey?
Yes, I am.
Well, let's not try to scare the audience too much.
Well,
we'll be sharing some stories here shortly.
Okay. Well, Billy, did you make costumes for the two of you?
No, we had previously gone to a campground where we dressed up, so it's like we already celebrated Halloween.
Oh, so you aren't going to get dressed up for Halloween, not even to pass out candy?
Well, we buy the candy, and then we go out to dinner, and hopefully by the time we get back, there's no kids, so we can eat that candy.
I thought you guys were on a diet. Oh, but Billy's trying to gain weight, isn't he?
Well, we're allowed to have a guilty pleasure day now and then. That's
okay.
Any successful day. But before we go too much further, I should also introduce our other special guest. So, growing up in the land of far and near, we would often have a friend over for coffee. Mom and Pop would. And I never quite understood how we're related, but I've been told that this is my mother's cousin twice removed. So if you'll all give a round of applause, this is the Earl of Mud Spring Manor. It's Brandon T. Beltpetter.
Oh my goodness. Hello, DJ. Oh, hello, Duchess Sue. So nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Hi.
So we're going to have some fun today talking about a few things, but everything Halloween. And I forgot, Earl, how do you take your coffee? Perhaps the Duchess can help with that.
Well, I always like to have lots of sweetener and stuff like that. All kinds of things. You know what I really like now this time of year? Even though there is no such thing as pumpkin spice. But I have pumpkin spice. But you know what? Pumpkin isn't a spice at all. Isn't that silly? Anyways, that's how I have my coffee this time of year.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy that. I haven't quite worked my way up to pumpkin spice. I have recently, however, started drinking foo-foo coffee like that.
Oh.
And that's what I've always called it, because for the most part, I don't drink those fancy coffees. I just like the black coffee a lot.
No.
So we're going to start in talking about some of our favorite things for this time of year. And that's going to be a round of different things. favorite memories of fall, maybe comfort foods that you enjoyed, and then we're going to move on to a couple of other topics, but we're each going to take a turn sharing with the audience some of our favorite memories of those times. So let's see. I think that in honor of Royalty Duchess, if you'll defer for a moment, because I'm not sure. Do Earls outrank Duchesses?
I'm not sure about that.
That's a good question.
Because if I were male, I would be what, a baron?
Well, okay. Let's
So
let
I'm not sure. I would have to look it up in the little book.
Well, I think so that we don't keep the Earl waiting, because he may be needed back at the home by a certain time.
Oh,
say
so
that.
Go right ahead.
Brandon, go ahead and start us off. What are some of your favorite things from this time of year?
Oh, well, it's the turning of the leaves and the blue skies. Yeah, when you look at the blue sky with the turned leaves, it's so pretty. And then, of course, when you hollow out the rutabagas to make decorations for Halloween. Well, it's a fun tradition, isn't it? We put those rutabagas out to scare away the spooky spirits.
Rutabagas, not turnips?
Well, I think they family. I think that the tradition started in Ireland, if I'm not mistaken, and Brandon has it right on the head there. That, well, actually, I should just call him the Earl. We all know his first name, but out of courtesy, the
Mudspring Manor.
So in Ireland, the tradition got started by carving in turnips. And of course, when the tradition came to America, that just translated into the pumpkins, and that's how the jack-o'-lantern was born. So thank you for reminding me of that old tradition,
Well,
Earl.
I may have had it wrong. I said rutabagas. Well, turnips, I suppose.
Well, yes, I think they use turnips because. Well, I don't know about the rutabagas, but rutabagas, I think, are a little bigger than turnips.
Well, that's what I thought. Rutabagas are those round things you can bowl with. And we hollowed them out. Turnips are kind of carrot-like. I don't know.
Well, yeah, they're.
Anyways.
I never tried that, but it might work really well.
It's my favorite thing too, Earl, this time of year with the pretty leaves that come out. And I do a little show on the side called Surely You Jest. It's my personal journal show. And I've been talking about fall recently, but that's one of my favorite things about this time of year is the changing of the leaves in the Northeast here. It looks like the colors of Tuscany. So, Earl, do you have any sort of favorite comfort foods or treats this time of year?
Well, yes. I like orange and brown crayons dipped in hot water. It just lends a sort of a candy corn taste. Anyways, it's pleasant to sort of. Anyways, yeah, it's one of my traditions.
I myself like the candy corn. Honey Billy, how way on this? What are some of your favorite memories of fall, and what kind of favorite treats do you have?
Well, like many holidays, it's always fun to remember back when you were a child. And some of my favorite things are the old TV specials, and first and foremost, candy.
Oh, candy.
Candy corn, especially, even though it does kind of taste like wax now. But candy.
Yeah, it was better years ago.
Yes.
Billy, I heard that they haven't actually produced candy corn since 1952, and that everything people are eating today is that old. Do you think that's true?
It does taste that way.
I don't know.
I don't think that's true. I think they
No.
made it. But if you had watched a Food Network show, they had a chef named Alton Brown who showed you how to make homemade pumpkin or homemade candy corn.
No, I don't believe it.
Oh yes, and he made marshmallows, and he did a whole show about candy, and he did and he did several shows about candy. And one of the shows that he did, he showed you how to make Halloween candy, pumpkin pies, pumpkin pies, but candy corn and candy pumpkins and marshmallows and some other things like that.
I
never tried it.
I just want to direct everyone to Dan P. H's graph in the chat room. And apparently a great many people, when they eat candy corn, and people, they are asked why they eat it, they say, I don't know. I think that's funny. No.
The same could probably be said of Christmas candy.
You know what? I kind of like it. This thing tastes just like candy corn, but they're in the shape of pumpkins.
Yeah, the pumpkins, and sometimes they have those little chocolate ghost or bats or something.
Yes, the mellow cream.
Yeah, and the Russell Stover's marshmallow covered or covered with chocolate. The marshmallows that are covered with chocolate.
Oh.
Now those.
Go ahead.
Sorry, those are my favorite.
Oh, I love those. And they now make them with dark chocolate, which is even better.
Oh, that poor Shy Yeti over there across the sea. He says he doesn't have candy corn. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, you're missing out.
Because he doesn't. You know, I would think the French or somebody would make it and send it to them.
Of course, the French.
Well, the French would do that because they aren't necessarily the best friends with England.
It's the invasion of the candy corn.
Yes.
Well,
anyway. So what about it, Shy Yeti? Do you think the French might send it to you?
Well,
with lots of butter.
You know, the French love Jerry Lewis, so they probably love candy corn.
I would think so. Although Jerry Lewis did make some kind of classic movies, because they must be, because people are duplicating them. We had the Shaggy Dog and the Nutty Professor, and I can't remember all of them, but they have duplicated, they have, what do they call it? Remakes, I guess is what they call them.
As long as they don't duplicate the one he made with Madeline Kahn.
I'm not sure what
that is. She is an 80s diva, Duchess, and one of her last starring roles was in Bill Cosby's final attempt at a sitcom where he was retired, and it was just called Cosby. But her most well-known role was in the film Clue with Tim Curry. And she was oh honey Billy, what was her name in Clue? Wasn't it was Miss Peacock, something Peacock. But her character has this famous line from the movie where she's going mad and she's talking about flames coming down the side of my neck.
That's right. Flames at the side of my face. Oh my!
She was Mrs. White.
Mrs. White. I don't know what. Oh, I know why I remember the name Peacock. Not only because we have a dining room that we're trying to theme with peacock decor, but Miss Peacock was my other favorite character, who was played by Eileen Brennan, who is also a sergeant in the the Private Benjamin TV or a movie with Goldie Hawn, one of our favorite actresses from the '80s. So,
No.
I like Goldie.
Duchess, I think we're on to you. We were talking about childhood memories of Halloween.
Oh, well, are we talking about food? Or are we talking? I kind of lost where we were at, but
That's okay. We could talk about food. I think that's sort of what we
well,
were on
food
about.
is. I like, of course, candy corn because everybody likes candy corn. I am not so fond of it when they reshape it into Easter candy or Christmas candy, but it. But I do like candy corn when and I like the Russell Stover's candy that is marshmallow dipped in chocolate, and since they make it now with dark chocolate, I like it even better. I
Yes.
have thought about trying to make the candy that Alton Brown did, but he posts all those recipes on Food Network's website, but it looks like a lot of work, especially the marshmallows. The candy corn, I think, is more like a fondant that they make really thick, and in other cases they would just fold it over a cake. But
marshmallows are very difficult to make.
Yes, I believe that. But then he makes
And if they turn out wrong, you can do what we did and put them in the microwave and forget about them for 6 months.
Were they any good then, or did you just throw them away?
Well, let's just say that we haven't used our microwave in quite some time because we should basically throw it out, but it's become our glorified bread box, and we don't have bread in the house.
That's funny that you have a bread box, but no bread. Oh.
Well, I think they stopped eating bread because isn't Billy have a reaction to gluten?
Oh dear.
Yes, I have a wheat allergy.
Yes, that makes it more difficult to.
You know what I like to do is get a whole loaf of Wonder Bread and then squish it down so that it's the entire expanse of an inch, and then I eat the entire loaf of bread in one sitting. I love it.
Do you put anything on it?
A little butter.
Well,
Earl,
that's good.
Earl, I think you did that one time when I was a child, and Mom asked you to leave.
Do you remember that? Oh, I'm so sorry, teacher.
Well, that's okay. If I remember correctly, each time after, then Mom was made sure she had one of those bibs for the restaurant for you.
Right. Oh,
Did you make a mess?
Well, on top of the no bread in the house, we actually had a little repair issue with the microwave. You see, if you don't clean your microwave, especially like the door jamb, you get food particles in there, kind of just grease basically. And after a time, that grease builds up, and it attracts the cooking items in the microwave. So all that action of microwaving, it's like a magnet to it. And we actually developed a wear spot in the microwave from where we didn't clean it. So eventually, I just put a little sign on the microwave said that we shouldn't be using it because it's sparking, and I unplugged it.
Oh my! Is that true, Billy?
Yes, we're actually going to save it for the next 4th of July. It should be rather cool in the driveway.
Oh my goodness!
Well, all the kids in the neighborhood come to watch it.
Oh my!
They probably will, but it might be a little scary, especially when the marshmallows inside the microwave explode.
Yes, and these were homemade marshmallows, we should say. Billy had an attempt at making homemade marshmallows, and I don't remember, didn't you make them some flavors?
Yes, but they were sugar-free, which is probably why we didn't eat them.
Oh, that may be why they... I don't know what happened to them, but I got the impression from GJ that they didn't come out very well.
They were like gummy bears foamed up with no flavoring.
Oh, that would be bad.
And I would have thrown them out, but they're on a very nice plate. Of course, that was 6 months ago, so the plate might have been, well, the plate might have disintegrated since then. But yes, the microwave must go out in the trash along with the 6-month-old marshmallows.
And the plate, apparently.
Just wanted to interject here that, oh, that Blue Jeans guy has joined us in the chat room.
Oh,
Yay. Let me see if I can garnish up a round of applause for
Oh
David.
boy, I hope so.
And of course,
Oh.
David is, of course, from the Denims. Another
That's
high
right,
court
the Denims.
So before we continue on, Duchess, we were talking about favorite treats and fall memories. Did you have any specific memories of maybe trick-or-treating as a kid?
well, yes. When I was a child, now this would be in the mid to late 50s and early 60s. I lived in a town with 800 people in it, and we went out. I started going out when I was about 3. We did not have parents accompany us. My sisters, who were older than I were, and for a little while my brother, but he was 12 years older than I am, and he was
Oh my goodness.
and
That frightened me.
The help must have saw their paycheck again.
Yes.
Yes. Well, anyway, so we would go out, and we would go, when I was little, they would take me around a little bit. And when I got tired, they would take me home, and they would continue. But as I got older, I discovered that they went to almost every house in town, there being about 400, 500 houses. And some of them gave out really good things. There was this one place that nobody wanted to go, but I always went there because the guy gave you money. I thought, well, that's really cool. But he couldn't think anything else to do, and so he gave us money, and that was cool. And it was usually, like a couple dollars. But a lot of kids were afraid of him because he seemed like a kind of grouchy guy.
Now, Duchess, before you continue, can you get a little closer to your microphone? You're sounding a little distant.
Oh, I am a little distant. Sorry. So when, but it was a lot of fun, and nobody ever bothered us. And everybody in town knew who each of us were. I mean, everybody knew everyone. And as I have said before, we really couldn't we couldn't do anything without our folks knowing it before we got home. So I guess we were well protected, and we did not seem to have any pedophiles or anything around. Although I'm sure that there were some somewhere in the area.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that was really fun about Halloween is that my mother made popcorn balls.
No, I love popcorn balls.
So do I. And she made it out of corn syrup and Jell-O.
Ooh.
And so she made a variety of them. And for some reason, I no longer like flavored popcorn.
Oh.
I loved my mother's popcorn balls. They were so cool.
Did she add food coloring?
She may have added food coloring. I thought that the Jell-O was, because she didn't dilute the Jell-O. She just poured it in with the corn syrup and mixed it up. And I think that just gave it color enough. Now, they were a tad bit sticky if they were very freshly made.
No.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay because kids like those kinds of things. And they were delicious.
And Duchess, could you hold that thought? We'll continue in just a
Yes.
moment. It's time for a brief station break.
Uh-oh.
Faraway Nearby will soon be entering its third season. If you've enjoyed listening to the adventures of DJ and the Duchess, why not show your support? Head on over to patreon.com/TFN podcast. There you can choose to make a donation. Who knows, maybe you'll get an invitation to the Royal Compound for a future episode. But whatever you do, make sure you let us know our time's been worth it to you. Thank you from the both of us. So, Duchess, you were saying about the popcorn balls that...
Yes, well, and Mom let us help with them as we got older. You know, when I was 3 and 4, I didn't get to help with preparation of food, but as I got older, I was allowed to do that. And that was lots of fun.
Now, Earl, you were a little before my time, but do you have some memories of your childhood and what was special about Halloween?
Well, you know what the most wonderful thing about Halloween of all was developing that special costume you were going to wear to the costume party, because that's what we had back then, costume parties. And yeah, we'd we'd have to find some clever way to dress ourselves. Yeah, I remember one time, DJ, I wrapped myself in toilet paper because I was going to be a mummy.
Did it work very well?
Not really. It sort of disintegrated along the way, you know. Any kind of moisture that reaches you. Oh, dear.
That must have been a great costume.
Oh, it really righted up on me in the, anyways, it righted up on me. And
did you have clothes or anything on underneath?
Oh, just a little. Oh, that was
a mummy, not a mommy, right?
That was strange. Anyways, it was the costume ball that we had every year at the community center here in Wilshire. Huh?
Oh, I was just going to remind you where you were. You forget sometimes.
Because I forgot. Where am I? Where am I, DJ?
Well, home is Mudstone Manor.
Yes. Well,
but you didn't hold the costume party at your home, apparently.
No. Well, it was an Oddstock. That's it. Oddstock Hollow. I finally remember.
Yes.
Oh, it's good that the nurses have upped your dosage. I'm glad you're remembering.
Yes. Anyway, we used to have the most important thing above and beyond, even trick-or-treating, was going to the community center there for the costume party. That was the most important thing. Everyone in the neighborhood attended. It was wonderful. Everybody showed up in costume, and it was a wonderful community gathering. It really was. And that was the most special thing I remember about Halloween when I was growing up. This the way the community showed up and had a special Halloween costume ball. Yeah, that was the best thing.
And so you tried dressing up as a mummy, eh?
Well, it wasn't very successful. I tripped a lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you use bandages or was it toilet paper?
It was it was supposed to look like bandages, but it was really toilet paper.
You should have got Mom to tear up a sheet for you.
I know. Oh, dear.
Of course, sometimes they didn't want to do that.
I'm
one of
frightened.
the problems I had is that it was usually very cold when we went trick-or-treating. And so we put these costumes on, and then we put these heavy coats on, or sometimes the costume would be big enough you could fit it over your clothes, and the people that answered the door liked that best, but they would always want to know what you were and want you to, sometimes they'd invite you in, but they always wanted to take your coat off and twirl around so they could see it. Because we didn't have a community costume thing.
No.
Occasionally, one of the two churches would have like a little party where you could bob for apples and
Bobbing for apples.
yes, that's a great Samhain tradition.
Oh, I loved it. We did that.
Yes.
We did it. Yeah.
I was never very good at it.
I don't know how people ever got that goddamn apple in their mouth.
Well, I was told by the experts who did this that you were supposed to go for the stem.
Oh, that's right.
Because if you went for the stem, we ought to have an apple bobbing party. That sounds like
I don't
a really
know.
good idea.
Everybody's slobber ended up in the same piece with all the apples.
Yes, but you could get the apples and then wash them off.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter does not do that. I don't know why. She doesn't.
Well,
she and her family do not wash off any kind of.
I was
even from the store or whatever. I don't understand that.
Duchess, I was just thinking about with how kids aren't allowed to bring in food to school anymore. You know, not even like prepackaged or whatever because of so many allergies. I can just see some mom carrying a basket of apples to school and spraying them all down with Lysol.
Oh my!
That would be terrible. They do make fruit and vegetable cleaner.
Oh, yes. Yes, I've seen that. Now, before I go ahead and share my childhood Halloween memory, hubby, Billy, would you like to share any special memories of yours?
Let's hear from Billy.
One of my special memories was going to the Woolworths to get your costume. And what we had growing up back in the old 70s were the Ben Cooper box costumes. You know, the ones that if you got too close to the lit pumpkins, you were toast. They had...
Yeah.
I still have my King Kong one from the 70s and the mask in a box from what I wore. That was right before they changed from cloth to vinyl. And it's about 2.5 feet long. I don't know how I ever fit into that thing. But I also had, let's see, the Bionic Man, Star Wars. But that was my favorite thing, was going to Woolworths and buying our costumes.
Wow. I always liked Woolworths. We used to go to in the town where we went shopping, which was about 10 miles away because there was nothing in Lyons where I grew up. But
Duchess, you're bargain.
Yeah, we went. Oh, what? Oh, excuse me. We went to the Woolworths and had lunch. Usually, we go to town and then we'd be there all day. We'd go to lunch at Woolworths. I really miss Woolworths.
I remember that. Woolworths used to have a little cafeteria kind of thing right in there, and you could have a cheeseburger real cheap.
And it tasted that way too, but
yeah, it certainly did.
But
I used to love their club sandwiches. They cut up into little corners with the stale potato chips and shriveled up pickle on the side.
I don't think my Woolworths had stale potato chips because a lot of people ate there.
Woolworths certainly knew how to do food.
It's
certainly
true.
did.
Well,
But they used Charlie chips too.
Oh, really?
The old Charlie chips that you used to get in a can. Our Woolworths used to have a big old can of them that they would dunk in and throw on your plate.
I don't remember that. Of course, our Woolworths put the food preparation sort of out of sight.
Oh, out of sight, out of mind. You have to wonder if they were using gloves back then.
I'm sure they weren't.
No, I have to tell you that our little Woolworths here in Wilshire closed about, 30 years ago. Does anybody really have any Woolworths anymore?
I don't think so. In the late 70s, early 80s, there was one up in the big city about 50 miles from us.
The ones in the UK, I think, closed last after they separated.
Oh,
Woolworths was in the UK?
Yes, I do believe.
Oh,
Well,
my goodness.
the
Shy
United
Yeti might
States.
be able to chime in on that on the chat board.
I know I'm very fond of company histories, and I looked up Woolworths at one point in time when they were starting to close. And if I'm not mistaken, the company that survives actually owns Foot Locker, so that's what Woolworths became.
Oh,
That's a terrible thing.
well, Foot Locker
I just-
doesn't sound very good, does it?
Have you ever been in it? I've been in a Foot Locker.
You know,
Um,
back in the day when I used to, I mean, really, before all there was anything, there was Woolworths. That's where we went.
yeah.
Woolworths.
When and I think it was Woolworth's Five and Dime store. Actually,
Yes.
because you know, and my folks used to just call it the Five and Dime.
Oh, yeah.
And there were some duplicates or copycat stores. There was Kruskies and Grants and some other things.
Rusty.
And
Oh,
you know,
do you remember Kruskies, or are you just laughing because it's an
Oh,
odd name?
no, I thought you said Krusties.
No, Kruskies.
I know the
Oh.
spelling of that.
What? What is it?
It's Kreskge.
Uh-huh.
And Duchess, do you know what they became later on?
No.
They're Kmart. That's what the K in
Oh,
Kmart.
that's where Kmart came from?
No,
Yes.
you're
Wow.
kidding.
They closed my Kmart. I have to drive
Oh.
60 miles to get
Yeah, ours
We
are not
have
quite
no- yeah.
elementary. Is closing soon too.
No, our
And
Kmart.
they're going to close the one up there. So I
Mhm.
guess we won't have a Kmart. But we have Dollar Tree, because
So-
if you watch certain channels on YouTube, you can see these people just do. I went to Dollar Tree today, and this is what I got, and it's like, so.
Let me tell everyone a big bargain. This is a big secret, but I want to let you in on it. Those who are in the chat room live right now, if you know all those dollar stores, well, just go to the 99-cent store.
We
A
don't
penny
have a
cheaper.
99 cent. We don't have a 99-cent store, and
No.
it's not cheaper because
Oh,
their prices can be anywhere from 99 cents to
oh,
$12.99. I think the
Right.
dollar store is the only store that has fixed prices.
well,
Yeah.
I'm shattered. I don't know what to think now. My entire universe has collapsed.
Have you ever gone to the 99-cent store?
Well, I thought so, but anyways, it sounded good on paper.
It does, and it's. But a lot of people that go to the Dollar Tree also go to 99-cent store, and there's a store called Under Five or something, and that everything is under $5. And
Oh,
Five
below.
below.
oh,
Mhm.
Five
Five
Below.
below. It
I
took
don't
me
know.
about it took me about 5 months to understand what Five Below meant.
Well, and it's good that you stopped going to the cemetery too, because that's 6 below.
Oh, 6 feet,
That's
6
what you
feet under. Oh,
Um,
that's strange.
it is.
Yes, we have random
He must be in a haunted castle. How do you feel about that, Billy?
The noises, I'm used
Yeah.
to them. I hear them all the time. I just don't tell people anymore.
Ah, that's clever, Billy.
okay. And then you
Never-
invite them over, and they hear all these things and get scared, right?
Mm-hmm.
Never tell people the strange noises you hear in your head. Don't ever do that. No.
Well, they might think that you're going to become a serial killer, because
Oh,
a lot of them have people and animals that talk to them and tell them to do
Yeah.
stuff.
So, since we've all taken a round on the childhood memory, I thought I would share that I remember being in school, and this is possibly around the third grade, I do believe. Now, the ironic thing is that the teacher I had at the time had a last name that rhymes with something or other witch, but we might not have used the W word. It might have been the B behind her back. But
Oh dear.
anyway, uh, I remember in class one time in the fall, we were making pancakes, but they were festive pancakes for Halloween. So they were pumpkin pancakes, and it was probably the first time I had ever had a pumpkin pancake. And I just remember being the little brat that I was at the time. We were stirring up all these things, and our very thoughtful teacher had come up with this fun activity for the kids. And I just remember stirring the stuff up, and within ear's range, I said, "This looks like dog food." But I also remember the last time I went trick or treating. Oh, I don't think I was even maybe 10 years old. I decided that I didn't want to go trick or treating much after that because all my siblings had grown up and had left home. My sibling closest to me is about 7 years, so that's enough that they were already done with school by the time I was halfway through.
Mhm.
Anyways, the last year that I went trick or treating up here in the wilds of New York, it was particularly cold that Halloween. I think it might have even rained that night, and I distinctly remember reusing an old costume from years before. I think I went as a ghost, so I had the white makeup all over my face. And I swear that it was cold enough that that makeup had frozen to my face by the time I got home. But I also made an important discovery that year, and I think you can share in this knowledge, Earl. Now, you know about glow sticks, right?
I certainly do.
If I remember right, you have a collection of them, don't you?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, you know that glow wears off after a while if you activate them. But if you don't activate them, anyway, oh, it's fine. You know.
But
Well,
you
I
never
found out.
see them glow if you
Well,
don't activate.
I found out the hard way because being the kid, I thought to myself, it's like a light switch. You flick it one way to turn it on, and you got to be able to flick it the other way to turn it off.
Yeah.
Um, well, I tried that, and thankfully it was over the bathroom sink because it broke open and it went everywhere.
Oh dear. That's
So
terrible.
Are we all still there?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here.
Okay, we had a momentary silence there. So,
Okay. So
okay.
what was inside that glow stick? Do you remember?
Just a bunch of slimy goo. It kind of reminded me of when my brother used to play with fireflies, and he was the mean kid that would actually squish his hands together with the firefly so that his hands would glow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
So,
mean.
but
He
some of
didn't grow up to be a serial killer, did he?
well, that depends on which ex of his you ask.
That's terrible. I've been watching a Canadian show about serial killers and
Oh
police.
dear.
Oh, well, who was it? It was Ricky Burton the other day said online he was looking for new followers and
Hmm.
on Twitter, of course, and I said to him, "Well, my brother is always being followed by social workers."
Oh.
Not such a good thing. I would bet that's not what he was looking for.
Now, did any of you ever make the little the bird feeders as a kid, the ones that you made out of pine cones?
Oh.
No.
Oh well, I'll share this with you. This might be a Northeast thing, but we used to gather pine cones when we were kids, and in class, anyways, we took a bunch of pine cones, and you would smooth peanut butter over the ends of the little, well, they're not quite branches, but the little leafy kind of things on the pine cone,
Yes.
and then you would roll it in a pile of bird seed, and you would let it sit and dry, and then you could hang it out on a tree, and it becomes a little bird feeder.
And the squirrels eat it.
possibly. But one of the things that I love about this time of year being in New York here is that there's plenty of apples around, and that's one of my favorite memories is Mom used to make baked apples this time of year. Do you remember those, Earl?
Well, you know what? I certainly do. My sweet mamma used to bake what she called an apple roll that was like dough and apple, and then you'd roll it all up and press it into a pan, and then drizzle this kind of syrup thing over it, and then shove it into the oven. And
Ooh.
once it came out, it was this delicious concoction of, well, it was a kind of a pastry with apple, and it was very sweet. I just loved it.
Oh, you're bringing the wild animals with your story there.
Oh,
Really sweet things are really happy for children. We had lots of apples where I grew up, but we didn't make like baked apples or things like that. My mom made apple pies. She made apple crisp and apple strudel.
now that's what I want to know, Sue, because
Yes.
this is important. There's a little thing we call apple cobbler, and then
Yeah.
apple crisp. And
Yes.
are they the same things or not?
They are not the same thing. An apple cobbler will have a dough on the top of it. They start out sort of the same. They're apples and butter and brown sugar and a little white sugar and maybe some flour or cornstarch to thicken up because the apples as they bake will let juice out, and so sometimes some kind of thickener is used, and that's sort of the basis of apple crisp and apple cobbler and basically apple pie. So an apple cobbler sort of has the same. It's sort of like a pie, only it only has a covering on top, and usually it is brushed with egg wash after you've put it on there, and sprinkle some sugar or sugar and cinnamon or something over it. And apple crisp is that same basic apple concoction, and they have cinnamon and cloves and all sorts of
No, it doesn't. Apple crisp. They got to put the rolled oats in that.
well, sometimes they do. And then they make a topping, which frequently consists of either flour, which is what I use, or rolled oats. And they make it with the whatever, the flour or the oats or whatever. And some people use both of those things, or they use cornflakes.
Duchess, Shy Yeti in the chat room is saying that it sounds like apple crumble.
No.
It could be sort of anyway, they mix this together with cinnamon and cloves and white sugar and brown sugar and some kind of flour or cornflakes or oatmeal or something like that, and you get this sort of crumbly stuff, and then you just spread it over top of the apples.
Right.
And you can do this with basically any fruit. You just make a pie kind of substance, and then you can put the various things on it, or you can make it. You can do you can roll out your dough and roll it up as like like you were describing. I think it was you, or maybe it was Billy. But and that basically is how you make apple crisp and apple cobbler. And in England, it could be called an apple crumble. Although I was under the impression that was a layered thing, where you would have apple and you would have
I don't know.
the topping, and then you would have some more apples and things. But Shy Yeti would tell us. And why are they talking about panties?
I don't know.
They're talking about old women carrying extra panties in their purse,
Billy!
dropping them.
I don't know.
So, guys, could you?
Really?
Well, I think
No,
I
I do carry extra panties in my purse because I have a severe incontinence problem that is caused by something that's wrong with me. I can't remember which particular thing, but I think it's maybe the MS.
I think, Duchess, that to put it succinctly, that some of us like to come prepared, but some of us are just more than well prepared. Like it's a weekend trip. Honey, do you want to go ahead and explain briefly your experience with the lady who seemed to be well prepared?
Well, we have a lady that used to come in, and she had a rather eclectic collection of panties in her purse. And I'm not talking about a small collection. And the reason being is because her niece or daughter-in-law would take them from her because it was inappropriate for her to have this type of underwear. Well, she would keep them safe by having them in her purse. Now, while she was checking out, in order to get to her wallet, there were several times she just nonchalantly pulled out the big old collection, put it on the counter to get to her wallet. And it was quite an interesting show. There were metallics, leather, you name it, she had it in her collection.
No.
Wow.
It was,
I just can't imagine why you said it was her daughter or granddaughter?
Yes.
We think it's her caretaker.
Yeah, it's like, what business is it of theirs? What underwear she wears?
Well, honey, I think you're leaving out one little detail. This lady also dressed quite fashionably, even for her own age. Like she may have thought she was 20 years younger. And if I'm not mistaken, honey, is this also the same lady that had younger boyfriends?
Yes, she had money. We're not quite sure, but there used to be a place of help, as you would call it, that would take individuals and help them live. Well, this place was quietly famous for taking celebrity children.
No.
So she came from a Hollywood background, so she had a very, very good fund to dive into. And a few of the local boys figured this out, and they would try to get after her money. And as she put it, she doesn't mind sleeping around because it's fun, but she's only going to do so much for them and then drop them and find somebody new. So she wasn't quite there. She was a very nice lady, so I'm not quite sure who took advantage of who. The younger ones trying to go for the money, or her taking advantage of the young ones because she was quite well aware of the situation.
So she probably could have taken care of herself.
Yes, she took the term cougar to a whole new dimension.
Now,
she was like the Empress Cougar.
Now, I should interject that we are almost at the top of the hour. However, we do not have any programming on after us. Normally, we would have Poke It With a Stick at 7 p.m., but Gavin and Jim have the night off. So we'll run just a little bit over for those of you who want to stay behind. But yes, honey, it's interesting you bring that up about the assisted living homes for the celebrity children. That actually explains a lot. Because Earl, I remember growing up, Mom used to say that you might have been Raquel Welch's love child.
Oh my! Did she tell you that? Oh my goodness! You know, indeed, she must have been pulling your leg or not. Anyway, well,
I don't know. I've seen pictures back in the day. You used to have beautiful long locks.
Well, I did. I prided myself on the long locks. You know.
So now we're going to make rounds here. We've each talked a little bit about our favorite childhood memories, and some of that, of course, included candy. But do any of us have specific favorite candies? I know the Duchess mentioned the Russell Stover candies, but
Yes, I love that. And it
and
seems to me that Russell Stover started out in the city where I'm living, but I noticed that their headquarters are now in Kansas City.
Oh.
Which part of Kansas City it didn't say, but because
Russell Stover has just got bought out
I'm
by
sure
another
he did,
company, I do
yes.
believe.
It figures Billy would be the one to know that.
They were bought out by the one company that has the candy in the bags, like the truffles and stuff.
Oh.
Oh goodness, what's the
I
name
want to
of
say
that?
Godiva, but it's not.
No, DJ, what's the candy that I always get you for the holiday time? It comes in the bag.
I know that they're truffles, and I thought last year they may have actually said Russell Stover on them, but
no,
I can't
they wouldn't
remember.
change it. I would think they would change Russell Stover's name.
Well,
it's like they kept Russell Stover's Lindt. Lindt is the one that bought them.
Lindt.
Yeah,
they couldn't get into the American market. Lindt. They basically took all the European companies and shut them out of the American markets. And in order to sell their candy over here, what they had to do was buy an American company. A lot of the Hershey companies and a lot of the UK companies were selling candy here, and they're well made. Our candies aren't well made, so they found a way to shut them out. And Lindt and several other companies are now buying U.S. companies. And Russell Stover's wasn't doing that well, so Lindt decided to help them out and basically keep them afloat while being able to get their product in the States. Because if it's manufactured here, they can sell it here.
Yeah. So do you think it will continue to be as good, or will it go downhill?
They're keeping it the same. Okay. They don't want to adjust it because the reason they're kind of bitter against people putting garbage in candy. So
they should be.
Hey, you know what? I'd like to address Dan PH in the chat room with his Three Musketeers as his favorite candy. Dan PH, did you know that once upon a time the Three Musketeers was a candy bar with 3 different candy bars in it? It's true. No. Yeah, and they had.
That sounds wonderful.
It was a candy bar with 3 separate candies in it, and eventually they decided that their nougat candy bar was the most popular, and Three Musketeers became the one candy that you get with Three Musketeers. But originally, you got 3 different candies, but not anymore. Sorry, Dan PH.
Wow.
Oh, that's interesting, Earl, because that's a little bit of candy history, and I think because I've seen in like the international food section, sometimes you go into the stores and they have candies from overseas and different delicacies from different countries, and I think I saw a candy bar similar to what you're describing with the 3 different flavors, but overseas they call it a Sky Bar, and the Cheyenne tell me if they still make the Sky Bar in his country, because if they do, it would be the original candy bar behind the Three Musketeers that you were talking about.
They make the Sky Bars in the U.S. It's made by Necco.
Oh.
Necco, they're made... Oh, gosh. They're made...
The makers of Necco wafers.
They started them in 1954.
I love Necco.
New England.
I forgot about those, but I love those.
You could choke on Necco wafers. They were so chalky.
It's true, but they were wonderful. I love Necco. I still love Necco candies.
We found the tropical variety of them, Duchess, not long ago. There's a tropical Necco wafer.
Really?
No.
Yeah, they're not very common. So when you find them, you've got to grab them.
Yeah.
They have them in Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel has a lot of the Necco candy because Cracker Barrel's from a New England area, and so is the Sky Bars and all the Necco candies.
Oh my!
Okay, I have to advertise for my favorite candy company. It's called Hammond Candies. They are all made by hand.
Say that again. Duchess Sue, say that name again. We didn't hear.
Hammond, Hammond, I think.
Oh,
DJ, you should know it. It's a little tiny candy company in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and they make all these wonderful candy by hand.
Aren't they one of those businesses that's maintained like a boutique shop in the Cherry Creek area?
Well, I know they moved just before we left, because they were up on Colorado Boulevard pretty far north, but they moved somewhere, and I don't know where they moved. But every once in a while, NPR runs a story on them, and then they get a lot of people start going in there, and you can look. They probably have a website. I have not looked at that, and they do send candy around to you. They'll send it to it, and they also will make things to order. Like if you want one of those big all-day suckers that is like humongous, they will make it flavored and colored the way you want it, and they will make it as big or small as you want it.
We have to be careful not to get the Earl excited about those suckers. That the last time he had one, they had to call the nurses.
Well,
no.
you know what happened, DJ, is that I had one of those big all-day suckers, and then someone was raking leaves, and I jumped into the leaf pile.
Oh, God.
And let me just say, if you have a wet sucker, the last thing you want to do is jump into a leaf pile. Oh, it was terrible.
I think that would be awful. Almost as bad as when I was like 5 or 6. I was going to somewhere with I was going skating, ice skating, I think it was, with a family, and we stopped on the way out to get ice cream, little ice cream cones. That's right. And the mother, us kids waited in the car, and the mother went in and got the ice cream cones. Well, she had like 5 of them or something in her hand, and one of them she dropped on the gravel.
Oh.
And she decided that, well, she momentarily thought about going in and getting another, and then she just decided that the gravel could be picked out of it, and of course it was my ice cream cone.
No.
I just thought that was really disgusting.
No.
And I don't think I ate very much of it. I think I threw it out.
Hope not.
Well, I'm sure that you could have picked the gravel out. It was pretty good size, and it wasn't as big as River Rock usually, but it was, it was about that. It was a little smaller than that, but it was good sized. It wasn't like you got a bunch of sand and stuff in it, but I really didn't feel like doing that, and I really felt kind of hurt because it was kind of a rude thing to do.
Yes.
I think I was like 7, 10 something, and our estate was not doing as well at that time as we would have liked, and they and their family was doing much better. So of course they figured that I would eat anything.
Oh dear.
Now, Earl, did you want to catch the listeners up with the chat room? Yeti just shared a memory.
I was just looking at what the Shy Yeti posted in response to Duchess Sue. And he says he saw a family with a child who dropped her French fry. And their parents just picked them up off the pavement and gave them back to her. Oh,
Well,
just
now,
a
I have to
silly.
admit that if I had French fries and I either was quite a ways from wherever I bought them, or I didn't have the money or time to go back, I might do the same thing because I really like French fries. And you know the 10-second rule: if you get it up off the ground in 10
Oh yeah.
seconds, it's still clean,
Yeah.
No,
which is obviously not true, but
right. Now, Duchess, before we go on to each of our favorite candies, I was just going to say you brought up an interesting memory there, Shayeti. I don't know if the rest of you remember, but there was this time, possibly during the 90s, and my folks were guilty of this. They kind of got lazy with the candy giving at Halloween.
Oh,
Instead of giving candy, they bought those coupons you could get at places like McDonald's and Burger King. You know, at first it was the hot apple pies, and
oh no.
then it was the French fries. So you know, it's no wonder we have trained a generation, or we have raised a generation of obesity in our childhood here. We're
well,
just passing
yeah.
it out at the front door. But um, Earl, Brandon, you know, you mentioned before that you have a fondness for crayons. Now, before you got onto the crayons, what were your favorite candies when you were little?
Well, I used to really love those there were these teeny tiny wax bottles that
Oh, I
had
love those.
sugary liquid in it.
Yeah, I
You'd
love
bite off
those.
the wax top and drink the liquid,
Yeah,
and then you'd eat the
just like,
wax.
well, you
Oh.
Mm.
could. I didn't generally do that, but you drink it like it was a soda bottle or something. And I think, as I remember, it was kind of disgusting, but at the
It
time I didn't
was.
know that.
But
Now, my sister used to buy and collect a lot of the toys that came in children's meals at McDonald's and Burger King and places like that. And then that's what she would hand out because there was this big thing about, you know, children who were going to die because people were putting razor blades and candy. And of course, that's utterly untrue. Now, of course, you can get rude people, and it doesn't hurt to inspect everything you get, but it's highly unlikely that you'll run into somebody that's doing something mean. But because of that, a lot of people moved to giving things like pencils or like I said,
toothbrushes.
I never
Bible
got
track.
any. I don't remember that, but I'm sure they did. But so my sister just she had a couple of elderly people like my mother and the old maid aunt, and they didn't eat a lot, and so she would buy them children's meals, and then she
Oh,
toys, which kind of annoyed my aunt. My mother's had Alzheimer's, and she had no idea what was going on.
Mhm.
But,
So, well,
but my aunt wanted the toys.
my favorite candies from Halloween time, and I'm not sure if this is the right name from them. I've heard them called Mary Janes before. They're the little taffy candies that have peanut butter flavor in them.
oh.
The ones
Yeah.
that came in the black and orange wrappers, right?
Yes. And
The
those are
cheap
one of my
candy.
favorites.
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't
And
matter if you got the black or the orange. They were both peanut butter flavored, right?
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
And some of the other favorites that I have, because you know, I'm still a kid at heart, and I'm still a junk food junkie. Just it's only once a week, and only you know a handful at a time. But I also like the mellow creams that we were talking about before. The kind of
Hmm.
thing that they make into candy corn, but they make them into pumpkins and haystacks and scarecrows
Yeah.
sometimes, and little black cats too. And I think the black cats actually taste a little different. Um,
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think they have chocolate in them.
Possibly. And then here in the Northeast, we also have maple candy that's popular this time of year because of all the tapping of the trees for the maple syrup.
Hmm.
One other thing I'll briefly mention, it's not necessarily a Halloween candy, but it's an old-fashioned candy, at least I think so, and I miss it. The the chewy candy Charleston Chew. Nowadays,
Oh,
it's chocolate and vanilla, but back in the day, they used to make them in banana and strawberry, and it
no.
was like it's probably been 10 or more years since they made those flavors, but I feel like I just saw them like the other day in the store, and I keep looking for them, and I go online to find out they haven't made those flavors in like decades now.
Hmm.
So, Billy,
Yeah.
hubby, what are your favorite candies from Halloween?
Well, you've mentioned most of them, but I can't believe hasn't mentioned Bazooka Joe bubblegum yet that you
Oh,
used to
Oh,
get
goodness.
with the little comic books.
oh, I love
Yeah.
those.
How can you not oh my.
Obviously, our
The
visitors
help must
don't
have
like
seen
it.
the toilet again. Um, but yes, the Bazooka Joe gum. How can you not mention that?
Actually, that was my memory of Bazooka Joe gum. Its flavor disappears instantly.
I don't know. I didn't like to chew gum. That's something that, as a child, it just turned me off.
No, you didn't leave it on your bedpost at night, Duchess Sue.
No, I didn't. But my sisters, because we were downwardly mobile at the time, my sisters used to instead of throwing their gum out when we had meals, they would take it and stick it on top of. We kept condiments on the table, and they would stick it on like the top of the ketchup bottle or the jar of grape juice, and then we would sit there and stare at this stuff. Well, not necessarily, but it was right there in front of you, and it's kind of like that's really disgusting. But they didn't want to. They didn't want to lose their gum. They wanted to chew it after dinner, and
No,
it
honey,
just it was just really. It was just really disgusting.
honey, Billy, what were you going to say about Bazooka Joe gum?
Well, I just can't believe nobody mentioned it because there's a lot of candy that used to be. There's a lot of candy that we can't get anymore, especially at Halloween, because of safety standards, like
Yeah.
the taffy or Bazooka Joe. Anything that was in a wrapper that may not be safe, you really can't find anymore.
Oh, I remember, Billy. I
I
gotta
thought they
tell you.
started putting candy in wrappers because, for the most part, because they thought that they were poisoning people.
I think that
And
had a lot to do with it.
and at the time, at one point in the 70s, I think there was that Tylenol thing there. Somebody got a hold of some Tylenol
That's
and it
true.
killed them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when all these hyper seals and stuff came out, and you can't get into. The first thing, of course, was aspirin and fake aspirin. But then they just started sealing everything up so that you can
Yeah.
hardly get into it.
That's exactly what happens to me, Duchess Sue. When I want to have my peanut butter, I don't just have to screw off the lid. There's a big plastic barrier that takes me 5 hours to get through before
That's
I
true.
can have some peanut butter.
And
But
then
Billy,
you don't want it because you're onto something else.
yeah, Billy, you know that Bazooka Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I used to read that comic strip and everyone, and it was such an excellent gag. And they were these teeny tiny little comic strips. And I remember that bubblegum was slathered with sugar, and it would be rock hard. That would be the most amazing thing. Rock hard, you'd bite into it and chip a tooth off. And it would slowly soften up.
Yeah.
Oh, there was nothing flavored like Bazooka Joe.
Well,
Was that
yes, that's true.
Was that the tooth or the gum that eventually softened up?
Probably both. I don't know.
Did you ever order anything that was on those?
You
Because
know,
they used to have ones where you could buy things.
That's true. But you know what? I used to order a lot of things from the back of comic books and stuff, but I don't think I ever ordered anything from Bazooka Joe.
What kind of things did you get from comic books?
Oh, everything. Don't you know, Duchess Sue, I got the X-ray glasses.
Oh wow!
And the I got the monkey things that swam in the water. Oh,
You know,
That's
we should do a whole show on that.
I
You know,
got all those things.
Junk you can
it,
order.
it's not hard for us to do an inventory of all the things that the Earl has ordered from the comic books. They're still in his nightstand at the home.
That's
Well,
true.
we should do that. We should do a show on little junk that we buy now or have bought.
That's
like
right.
Comic books and other things. There
True. You
there
know,
are other
for
things like the dollar store and an app that a store called Wish that I think comes from China and sells things like 98% off or something.
yeah.
So you can get clothes for like $2.
Oh yeah, don't stand near an open flame.
You know, back in the day, I bought for $18.99 a monkey that came in the mail.
Was this a live monkey?
They delivered it live. Oh, I opened the box and that thing scrambled out and shit everywhere. He was terrified. Oh,
I'm sure.
it took
Wouldn't you?
about a month for the household to come to. Anyways, it was horrible. Don't ever do that.
Earl, how long was it before Michael Jackson asked for his pet back?
Yeah. Well, it might have been Michael Jackson. But anyway, oh, I think it was.
I would think it would be a mean thing. I would think that the pet protection people would be out there,
Well,
you know,
thank
doing bad
goodness.
things to whoever sold it.
They don't allow it today, but honest to Pete, back in the day, you really could do it for $19.
Well, I'm sure if you wanted to buy a monkey now, you'd have to pay more, and I think they really
Oh,
discourage wild
It's a
animals.
different world, Duchess.
It certainly is, but PETA is not very fond of you.
No.
You know, yes, they
Yes.
have his picture in their office. You know, I can imagine that Bazooka in its day, Bazooka Joe gum was probably the socks of the Christmas gift day.
Yeah,
I can
I'm
just
sure.
imagine that the children are home with their booty of candy and going through their pile, and you know, all the Bazooka Joe gum is probably off to the side.
yeah. Well, I think a lot of people still like those things.
I don't know. Billy,
Yes.
I got a question for you. There was a bubble gum that came out long after Bazooka Joe. Bazooka Joe was so hard to start on, but then
Yeah.
this soft bubble gum came out. What the hell was it called?
Mm.
There's like Bubba Gum or
Bubble gum. That was it. Bubble gum.
Is that because the rednecks had a hard time chewing the hard stuff?
No, well, I did anyway. Oh no,
Hubba
Billy!
Bubba.
Billy, that was it. Hubba Bubba.
Hubba Bubba.
Oh,
Oh my
yes.
God, I don't know what they did to that. They radiated it with radiation or something, but it became soft.
Yeah.
It was marvelous.
They also
I'm
made
sure.
it with fruit centers eventually, which was really disgusting because
Yes.
unless you chewed it just right, the fruit center disintegrated the
Oh.
bubble gum.
I
Oh,
remember
wow.
a gum in the 80s that was square shaped and it had a fruit gel in the middle. I know it's not the same as the one that you're talking about, but there was also kind of a taffy candy that was made for a while and it was called Bonkers.
Yes.
You remember that? Bonkers had two flavors, the outer layer and the inner layer. If you look on YouTube, you can find commercials for Bonkers. It's like it sounds kind of crazy. And there are always these big comical pieces of fruit that drop down on the people in the commercial.
One of the candies that I miss is growing up, there was a lady who used to go to the Star Market, and she used to get the Brax Pick-a-Mix.
Oh,
Those were the white fruit nuggets, the
I love
royal
those.
taffies, basically any of the candy that could be very easily unwrapped and tampered with.
Mhm.
But it was all of the old vintage candies, and I don't even think that you have Pick-a-Mix anywhere anymore. All of it's pre-sealed and sorted now.
I think that if you go to grocery stores that have bulk food,
Mm-hmm.
that they have that there, that they have some of that old candy there, because I stop every once in a while and buy a selection of hard candy for
I know for a while there they used to have like an honor system where you could get a handful or a sample, and there was a little box there that you could drop your coins in if you didn't want to get a whole bag.
where? What? Where was this?
These were at the grocery stores that had the bulk candy, and it was I think it was even specifically a Brock's display, and it was an
Yeah.
honor system that if you took some of the candy and you didn't want to buy a whole bag, you just put money in the little coin box.
Did anybody ever really do that?
I'm sure they did. Most of us are pretty honest, aren't we?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a fair share of missing grapes in grocery stores that aren't paid for.
I have noticed that if you go into grocery stores and you aren't careful, you'll get grapes that, you can tell that somebody's come by and eaten all these grapes. Of course, mine that if you're going to eat fruit, it's really good to rinse it off first. Now, she didn't wash it with soap and water, which some people did, but something that came from the grocery store, or even the fruit that was on our trees. Because, and when I was really little, you could eat the fruit right off the tree. But then one year they were having problems with some kind of bugs, so they sprayed the entire neighborhood, all of the fruit trees and stuff. And my sister, being the idiot she is, would just pull them off and eat them as was. And Mother had carefully explained to us that there was poison stuff on the trees, not to eat the green apples without washing them. Now, we were big about eating green apples and rhubarb and stuff, and we had to wash all that stuff. So we had a ditch that ran down the front of the street that at one time they had used for irrigation. Now, there were a couple of neighbors that still used it as irrigation, but most people didn't. But we would go and wash the stuff off in that, and then it was safe to eat. But my sister decided that she didn't need to do that, and she got really, really sick.
Oh, dear.
So before we wind down here, we're in our last category, so we'll be winding up shortly. And the cast may stay behind for a little after party, but that will be offline here. So the last thing on our list of favorite Halloween memories, and I know, Duchess, you're not going to really have a weigh in on this one, is scary movies. Now, in the interest of time, I will start us off by talking about this. I'm not really terribly, and to meet my husband, you'd be surprised to know this. I'm not a big horror movie fan.
Oh.
I'm more into suspenseful movies, so less blood and guts, more kind of Alfred Hitchcock type stories. So,
Oh, yeah.
one of my earliest memories of on purpose watching a horror movie was when I was in Boy Scouts. We had a Halloween party, and we went to the lodge in our little town, and we had a sleepover in the main room, and we had a big TV out, and we were watching some movies at the time. I think we might have watched one of the Halloween movies or Friday the 13th, but certainly we watched House. We had, oh, pardon me, I've got an alert.
Oh, my.
they had a haunted house in the basement of the lodge, and I wasn't really interested in going to that, but I got dragged down there. And well, my strategy to get out of the haunted house as quick as possible was as soon as they forced me down the stairs, I started my best horror movie screams. So they got an earful and they let me go back upstairs.
Well, that seems like a reasonable thing to do.
But some of my favorite horror movies, as I was saying, are really more suspense movies. I enjoy Amityville Horror, each of the versions. Starting with the original, I do believe stars Barbara Streisand's husband. Um, Earl, do you know Barbara Streisand's husband's name?
James Brolin, dear.
Oh yes, yes, that's right. You've got his poster in your room. That's right.
That's true.
Draft even, and The Happening, which I think is the modern retelling of the couple that investigated the story of Amityville Horror. It's the couple who are sort of paranormal investigators, and they've since made a newer movie which I haven't seen, but it's about the possessed doll called Annabelle. But the Happening was quite a good suspenseful movie. And then, of course, lastly, it's not really a horror movie, but this kind of tells you the person I was going to be later. I always thought Mommy Dearest was scary in the 80s.
It
They
was.
started,
Oh,
they showed it on HBO when I was little, and I always thought it was scary when Mommy Dearest got that wild-eyed look in her face, and she cut her daughter's hair because her little girl didn't appreciate the nice things Mommy did for her. And I just could never watch that scene with my sisters. I always had to hide with my hand, my head, and my face in my hands so I didn't see the haircut scene. So Earl, what are your favorite scary movie memories?
Well, many of them. I'll tell you one thing, The Haunting. It's a very old movie, and I wouldn't miss that for the world. But here's an even older one that I want to tell you about. It came out in the 30s. That's a long time ago, and guess what? It's black and white. I hope you can tolerate a black and white movie. Anyway, I would totally check this out. It's called The Old Dark House. That's the title, The Old Dark House. You can watch it on YouTube for free.
Oh,
I wouldn't miss it because this is the movie that kind of set up all the tropes for all the movies that came after it. You know, the hand that would come out of the bookcase and swipe at the innocent woman. I'm telling you, this is the movie you want to watch to catch all of those original tropes. And it starred Boris Karloff.
oh yes. He made a lot of those kind of stories.
Well, the thing is, this is the first movie he made after Frankenstein
Oh,
and a young Melvin Douglas. Yeah. And it was the movie premiere, the debut of Charles Lawton. Yeah. Charles Lawton made his movie debut on The Dark House, The Old Dark House. And then finally, Gloria Stewart. Now, she was the old woman in Titanic. Remember the James Cameron Titanic?
yeah.
Right, she dropped the heart of the ocean into the ocean.
She did, but Gloria Stewart was a young woman in The Old Dark House. Anyways, these are all reasons you should go to YouTube and watch The Old Dark House. And let me tell you, the last 10 minutes, they'll freak your brain out. Yeah. That's the last 10 minutes.
I will recommend it to Cleo. She likes black and white movies. She likes old things.
Oh,
So that's my movie recommendation.
excellent. And hubby, did you have any particular favorites you would recommend to a novice to the horror movie genre?
Well, there's a couple of good ones from the 70s. Legend of Hell House, even though it has a bit of 70s funk to it, it's a really good psychological horror film. There's also, if you want something lighter, there's also Blythe Spirit from the 40s. That one is
that's
also
a good movie.
good.
Now, I wouldn't think that is a horror movie.
Well, Halloween.
Okay, yeah.
I'm into the haunted house ghosty movies. I'm not into the serial killers and all that other stuff.
Well, one of the things nobody has mentioned, and I have no idea how good it is, and it is the one movie, kind of horror movie, that I actually attended of my own free will. I was invited out on a date, and this gentleman wanted to go see this movie, and we went to see Rosemary's Baby at a drive-in.
Oh, yes. Oh, that was a spooky movie.
That was. It wasn't as scary as it was just, I don't know.
I remember
it was just really bizarre.
I remember that being played on HBO in the 80s, and I remember not being able to watch the scene where the child cuts its way out of the suitcase.
I don't remember that scene.
Or that may not be the same movie.
No, I don't think so, because Rosemary's Baby.
DJ, are you thinking of It's Alive?
Maybe.
Rosemary's Baby is about...
That's the demonic baby that kills everyone. DJ,
I don't remember the baby killing everyone. I thought that it ended with her accepting the child.
I'm confusing two movies. Honey, did you have any other movies you wanted to bring up?
Not that I can think of at the moment, but we watched that movie last year, didn't we? The Dark House. Didn't we watch that?
Oh, I hope so.
We'll have to look it up. It sounds like a good one.
I think we watched it.
But before I let everyone go, because we are well past our time limit here, I just thought I would mention a movie that we saw maybe a year or two ago. And it was something that I thought about because, poor Shelley Duvall has been in the news in the last year or so for being on Dr. Phil and, having an unfortunate turn of events in her life. And she's not in this movie, but she reminds me a lot of the actress who is. Now, this is a movie that was done the year I was born, 1977, and it stars a young Mia Farrow. When her hair is pulled back, she looks a lot like a young Shelley Duvall. And this movie is called The Haunting of Julia. And basically, this young couple has a child, and when the little girl is at the breakfast table, she starts choking. And historically, I guess at the time that this story takes place, the Heimlich maneuver wasn't a common practice. They didn't have it taught to people in first aid classes.
Oh dear.
So in the storyline, the main character that played by Mia Farrow loses her daughter to a choking accident.
No.
And then the rest of the movie is spent with her regretting that she could have saved her daughter's life. And then she starts getting visited by ghosts of children, including her own. So that particular movie is called The Haunting of Julia. And I think it's available on Amazon. I don't know about Netflix, but if you search for it, you might find it. And who knows, it might be in the cheap movie bin at the Wally Mart.
Yes.
So I am going to go ahead and say goodbye to the listeners. Do we all want to take a round and say our farewells?
We could do that.
Go ahead, Duchess.
Well, thank you all for coming. We will see you in a couple weeks. not a live show, I think, but we will undoubtedly be talking about something interesting. And again, I want to thank you all for coming. Have a good weekend.
All right. And Brandon, the Earl of Mudstone Manor, it was a pleasure to have you.
It was.
And for our listeners' benefit, I'd just like to let you know that Brandon has decided to pull up a chair with us, the Duchess and I, so he'll be coming back.
Oh my God.
Oh, I am so happy.
Oh.
So
It's really good to interact with him.
Thanks so much for having me.
We'll be sure to have a fresh dish of crayons out for you.
Okay. Yes.
Brown and orange are good. Oh.
We'll have them peeled and sharpened for you. And honey, any parting thoughts for our listeners?
Well, I want to thank the listeners, and I want to thank you and Duchess for having me on, as well as meeting the Earl for the first time.
Oh, Billy, you're such a tear.
All right, I will play us out.
No.
This has been the Faraway Nearby Spooky Fun Edition with the Duchess Sue, DJ Starsage, and special guests Hubby Billy. The voice of the Earl was played by Toppy Smelly.
Oops.
Thank you for listening to the Faraway Nearby.
Visit our webpage at tfnpodcast.com.
Find our fan page on Facebook and our companion blog on Tumblr.
This show is available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher Radio.
Email us at tfnpodcast@gmail.com.
Follow us on Twitter at TFNDJ.
And call or text us at 720-230-6919. This show is a member of the Pride 48 Network.
Find other shows at pride48.com.
Okay, I am going to disconnect from the screen here.